Hey you, welcome to the Great Talks podcast. Talks about great thinking, social skills, communication, personal development and team coaching. Because in a world that is black and white, we can all use some gray. My name is Lisette van Putten and I will be having these talks with you. I'm a social skills teacher and coach and I will be sharing my thoughts, knowledge and practical tips to create your own greatness. So stay tuned and enjoy this brand new episode. Well, let's talk. Welcome to a new episode of the Great Talks podcast. It's episode 9, and we're going to talk about GreyT Fears. We've already talked about perfectionism in a previous episode, and I actually want to elaborate and build on that a little bit because we talked about how striving for perfection can either be numbing and you don't actually start doing the work at all, or it can put you into overdrive and you are going to work harder, work more, work longer to get to that point where you think it is perfect. And one of the things that we also talked about is that how behind that perfectionism, that stressful vibe that can create you going into overdrive or maybe numb you, um, behind all of that, there's also a quality. Because when we are stressed, we actually use the qualities because that is something that we know we can do really well, that we know we can put to work, we can trust it, but we will overdo it most of the time. And that is actually when it can obstruct us from achieving the things that we want to achieve. So, those are the things that we already talked about when it comes to perfectionism. And if you want to learn more, you can check that previous episode as well. So, in this episode, I want to elaborate a little more and continue that conversation. And one of the things that we are going to talk about is procrastinating and how not only that numbing feeling, but also going into overdrive can mean that you are procrastinating. Because most of the time we think not doing anything is procrastination. And when we are lying on a couch and not doing something, we are definitely procrastinating. But also, when you are going into overdrive, you are also procrastinating. So, we're going to talk more about that in a bit. And another topic that we are addressing in this talk is fear of failure and how being afraid of failing and doing things wrong and not being good enough is part of perfectionism and can also result into procrastinating. One of the other fears that we are talking about is fear to shine, and that can also result in procrastination. And that actually means that we are afraid to be really good at what we are doing and to actually achieve that perfect goal that we have. But it can be really overwhelming, and it has to do with a lot of responsibilities that we can feel that comes with that as well. So those are the 3 topics that we are going to talk about in this episode. And before I'm going to start, I want to stress that the things that I am going to share with you in this episode are built on my own experience, my perspectives, and by sharing them with you, I hope I get to inspire you. Maybe they can help you, or maybe you know someone that is struggling with perfectionism or procrastination and you can share this talk with them. But I am aware of the fact that, of course, this is not the whole truth. This is my own truth, and I am sharing that with you. And if there's anything that you want to um, know, that you want to share, that you want to comment on, please do and share your opinion as well with me because I'm definitely really curious on your take on perfectionism and procrastination as well. Okay, so procrastination. I am talking to you about this because sometimes I consider myself queen of procrastinating. I can really procrastinate very, very well. I can have a very long to-do list and still lay on my couch and not do anything. And not start with all the the things on my list. But I can also avoid doing the things on my list by doing a bunch of other things that I consider are very necessary to do in that moment. So maybe I have to do some work stuff, but I don't really feel like doing that. And instead of procrastinating in a way that I am either taking a nap or I'm lying on a couch, like literally not doing anything, I'm going to do the dishes, I'm going to do laundry, I'm going to clean up some things, do groceries, all things that I also need to do. But in that moment, I should actually do the thing that is on my to do list. And because I am master in procrastinating, I'm queen of procrastination, I want to share a little bit with you on how that actually works and what procrastination actually is and what can be the source of procrastinating as well, because sometimes it can be really helpful to know where it is coming from in order for you to actually deal with that and cope with it better. So, with procrastinating, you're actually avoiding the things that you need to be doing. And there are different reasons why you are avoiding that. It can be because you are bored, you think that they are not fun to do, you cannot put any creativity in them, or maybe the consequences of actually doing those tasks can lead to certain responsibilities that can be very overwhelming or scary. When you are procrastinating, you're not productive and you're actually self interrupting because you're interrupting the flow of working towards a long term reward. Because when you have a task and you are like setting a goal, you have that focus and you want to achieve it and you're working towards it, you are creating a flow in which you are working towards achieving that goal. But when you are procrastinating, you're not doing that, you're not working towards that goal, and you are interrupting yourself with that. And that actually happens because we get distracted by short-term rewards. So that long-term reward, it takes more effort, it takes more time, so we have to work towards that, but it's not an instant reward that we can have right now. As for short-term rewards, are the things that we can have instantly in the moment, and we can have more of because it takes less time, it takes less effort. However, we are interrupting that flow, which creates sort of like a detour when we are working to achieve that goal. And that way, we actually take longer to get to that long term reward. And that actually creates a vicious circle because when it takes longer to get to that long term goal, we want more instant rewards and we want more short term rewards. And that moves that long term reward even further away because it takes more time, because we end up procrastinating and we are going to focus more on the short term rewards. And one of the reasons why we want those short term rewards is because we are coping with stress. And when we are stressed, we want to take a break. And in a break, we want to do something that makes us feel good. Hence, that reward system with the short term rewards. And then that reward system is actually working against us because it takes more time, because we are procrastinating. And that's how that reward system actually creates a sort of delay in getting to that long term reward. So, the way I see it, I have to clean up my house, I have to unpack certain boxes for a very, very, very long time already. But I haven't been doing that because that long term reward is so far away. That reward is harder to grasp. So I'm going for instant rewards, which might be taking a nap, binge watching some Netflix series, looking on my phone, going through Instagram, doing a bunch of other things besides cleaning out those boxes. And one of the things that procrastinators have in common is that they can actually fear the outcome of when they are achieving that long term reward, that goal, that focus point that they have set. If they strive for that point and they actually achieve it, procrastinators can have a fear of the outcome because it takes such a long time to get to it. So we can have all these ideas in our heads already and create that fear of that outcome. And there are two different fears that we can have. And those are the two different fears that we are going to talk about. The GreyT Fears, the fear of failure and the fear to shine. So when it comes to fear of failure, it is easy to say, well, let's not start because then nothing can go wrong. We want to strive for perfection, but we are afraid to fail. So what if it's not good enough? That is something that we constantly fear, and that is why we don't finish our task. And we might not finish our task because we are procrastinating by not doing anything, or maybe we are procrastinating by doing a bunch of other things that are not little steps that are helping us to achieve that goal or to finish that task. One of the reasons why we might be afraid to fail is that we have this self-limiting belief where we think that we are not good enough, that we don't know enough to actually be working towards that goal and to actually working on that task. So we might not do well enough. So how can we actually finish it? Because we won't be good at it. So we are challenged by the task that we need to accomplish. And when we are afraid to fail, being challenged and doing something new can be really scary, and can actually be something that you can struggle with quite a lot, because every time you do need to do something completely new and you don't feel like you are good enough, that you know enough, that you are skilled enough, then you are procrastinating because you don't want to start, because you feel as if you won't be able to do it. And if you do, that you will fail. But if you don't do it, you will fail automatically because you don't even do the work, or you didn't even start the work to make sure that you get to experience that new job or that new task, or that thing that you really 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 want to do. So when you are afraid to fail, doesn't mean that you don't dream big and that you don't have ambition, and that you don't want to do things, because you can still have all these ideas and have all these thoughts, um, and want to create new things, but it's just that limiting belief that is interrupting your flow on actually developing and creating and growing. And with fear of failure, that inner critic that you have is overshadowing all the other voices that are you. So that inner critic is constantly judging. And that is really convenient, because if you're already judging about yourself and you're judging about the work that you did or didn't do, then when someone else judges you, or gives you feedback on certain things, then it cannot be as hurtful as it might be, because you're already saying all these things to yourself and you're always listening to yourself. So you do get that message that you are not good enough. And that is a nice way of coping with it, because if I tell it already, if I judge harshly on my own work, then if anyone else wants to comment on it, then it doesn't hurt me, because you were already judged by you. And sometimes that fear of failure comes from a previous event where you did fail and you feel really insecure about doing it this time. Or you might be operating from this idea that people used to tell you that you weren't good enough, that you were not able to achieve it. If you heard that message over and over and over again, you will believe it and you will internalize it, and it can lead to the fear of failure, because someone has been telling you within any situation that you won't be able to achieve anything. So that automatically results in that fear. It can also come from you linking that achievement to self-worth. So when you have achieved that, then you can accept who you are, you can value your work, and you can get like acknowledgement for it. And then you create such high conditions on achieving that it can be really scary, because what if you fail? And you have that quote, what if I fall? Oh, darling, but what if you fly? When it comes to fear of failure, you're afraid to fall. But what if you are afraid to fly? That is the fear to shine. And when it comes to fear of shining, it is actually the overwhelming responsibility that comes with doing really well. So you can be afraid to not be good enough when you are striving for perfection, but you can also be afraid to not be able to maintain that same level that you've set, to actually achieve that goal and reciprocate it over and over and over again, to reach that bar that you have set, because you are really good and you know that you are doing well. So you've raised the bar and you have set that new standard. But what if you cannot handle the responsibilities of that set standard, and not being able to deal with the consequences when you might not be able to reciprocate that standard or that norm that you created, that people actually expect of you? So it can be really overwhelming to also be successful, and that can prevent you from actually starting, which is the fear to shine. So with those GreyT fears, whether it's fear of failure or the fear to shine, you can feel indecisive, you can feel anxious, you can feel powerless, you can feel helpless, you can feel as if you are constantly avoiding the things that you need to do. And one of the things that can be really helpful is to make those steps smaller. So don't take big steps towards that goal. It feels as if that goal, that long-term reward that is far away, if you take one big step, that would be freaking easy to get to that point. That would be nice to be able to do that. But most of the time, that is not how we get there. We need to take those little steps in between. And to take those little steps and to go into detail and to get into that nitty gritty, that will be helpful when you get to that goal, to actually maintain that that standard that you've set, because you are aware of everything and you've taken those little steps to get to that point, which makes it easier because you created that foundation. So when you might be a little bit afraid to shine, create that foundation, take those small steps, build those those steps like brick by brick, because that way it will get you to that point. If you want to try to take a leap and just get to that end reward that you've set, that goal, and you have no foundation, it can be really hard to actually maintain that. So to build it slowly, have patience with yourself, trust that process, it will get you further. And even when it comes to fear of failure, the fear to take a smaller step is less than to take a big step. When you feel like you have to take a really, really, really big step, that fear is also bigger. So when you create the smaller steps, that fear will actually shrink, because there's no room to have that much fear. And the chance that you actually do make a mistake when you take a small step is also smaller. So when you take smaller steps, build that foundation, can help you with the fear of failure and also the fear to shine. And it can help you with procrastinating. So this talk, we talked about procrastinating and how procrastination is actually a self-interrupting way of not getting to that long-term reward, because we are focusing on that short-term reward where we get instant pleasure, that we feel good instantly right now, and not having to wait longer until we achieve that long-term reward and that goal that we have set. And it's a way of coping with stress, because when we are stressed, we want to feel good and we give ourselves breaks and we have that reward system on actually feeling good. So we take sort of like little shots of pleasure and feeling good to deal with that stress. And because we are focusing on that short-term pleasure, is when that goal that we've set, or the to-do list that we have, is taking much, much longer. One of the things that procrastinators have in common is the fear of the outcome that will come from achieving their goals. And one of those fears is fear of failure, where we just don't want to start because then nothing can go wrong. Because we feel that we are not good enough. We don't know enough to actually do the task that is before us. And one of the reasons why we can be afraid is because we have that inner critic that is constantly judging us. The other fear is fear to shine, and that is when we are so overwhelmed by the responsibilities that will come when we actually achieve that goal, when we are good enough, but that we might not be able to reciprocate that standard that we would have set. Because what if it is all that you've ever wanted? So the best summary is still that quote, "What if I fall? Oh, darling, but what if you can fly?" You can be afraid of falling. You can be afraid of flying. You can be afraid. I don't care if you're afraid, because, I mean, if your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough. Make sure you take those small steps though. But if they don't scare you, they're not big enough. So you can be afraid. Of course you are afraid. There are challenges, things are new, certain things are just unknown. How can you know what to do when you are aiming for something, or you working towards something that is unknown to you, or that challenges you? Be afraid, but just do it anyway. And of course, this episode, I'm also going to share a great trigger and a great tip. The great trigger of this episode is me, myself, and I. Because I already mentioned that I can be the queen of procrastinating. I am a master in it because I procrastinate. I am afraid to fail, and I am also afraid to shine as well. So I procrastinate when my to-do list is really, really long, when there are tasks that I don't really like, that are boring, that aren't fun, but also when there are things that are actually way too big. So I can put things on my to-do list, which is one of those big steps that I need to take or want to take. And that also evokes my fear of failure. Because what if I'm not good enough? What if I cannot achieve that goal because I'm not skilled enough, because I don't have enough experience, because I don't know what to do in certain situations? But I'm also afraid to shine, because what if it's too good? What if it's too good to be true as well? But also, what if it's too good and it is so overwhelming because there are so many responsibilities that come with that are really, really scary? So how do I deal with that as well? So definitely my great trigger in this topic is myself. And I do have some great tips, because it is something that I am struggling with um, throughout the whole journey of dealing with my perfectionism, starting my business, building my business, doing new things, challenging myself. Procrastination is something that is definitely something that I struggle with, and those fears, those great fears as well. So I've been researching a bunch of things along this entire journey already, and I'm going to share a few tips with you. So one of the things that I do when I have a long to-do list is I start multitasking. Multitasking is something that just doesn't work. It leads to like unproductivity. It's a waste of time because you are not focused on one thing. You are focusing on a bunch of different things, and it takes more time to actually achieve all those tasks and to finish it all. And it also leads to more procrastination as well. So multitasking is not an option. I started doing that because I get bored with all those things that I need to do. So I thought if I just alternate and do different stuff, multitask, then I won't get bored. So I get things done, but I don't get things done when I multitask. One of the things to make sure that I'm not procrastinating is not looking at my phone all the time. I talked about it a little bit already, that I think that I am on my phone quite a lot. And I have found a tip that I'm going to try to apply. And that has something to do with that short-term reward and a long-term reward. If I feel bored and I want to check my phone, I want to use the 5-minute rule. So I extend the time before I actually check my phone. And that way I train my brain that it's not a short-term reward anymore. And how can I extend that time? So how can I make sure that I am using that 5-minute rule is to find something else that I want to do when I feel the urge to grab my phone and check something. So I will do something differently so I won't check my phone. The other great tip I already shared is the small steps, realistic goals, and to keep actually moving forward and to take those steps all the time. Even when I'm procrastinating, trying to take a step, take it one day at a time, just the small steps towards those realistic goals that you have set. And as a last great tip that I want to share is don't hurry. Because when you start rushing things, you actually will take longer because the chance that you make a mistake or make more mistakes when you are rushing is bigger. So slowing down is actually better. It can feel as if it takes more time because you're slowing down. But in the end, because you're slowing down and you can take smaller steps and you can build that foundation, it can actually help to grow and to develop and to get to that point where you actually want to be. Thank you for listening to this episode of Great Talks. Please let me know what you think, ask me anything, and spread greatness by sharing these talks with everyone you think needs a little bit more grey. Don't forget to be great until our next Great Talk.